Hello, my name is Cindy Sim, and I am the CEO of Team Carepal. We are getting ready to launch the most innovative app co-designed by caregivers that will transform their caregiving role and support their mental health, which is so incredible. May is National Caregivers Month. Yay! So we wanted to take this time to bring awareness to caregiving by having a conversation with Nicole Dauz. The lovely Nicole is a self-care coach, a speaker, and an author. Her mission is to change the story around caregiving and celebrate the journey. Nicole is also a caregiver, which makes her the absolute most perfect person to talk to on the real life caregiver experience. Our topic today is on the stories of love, trauma, joy, challenges that comes with the caregiving role. Nicole, tell us about your personal background, your experience as a caregiver. Share some insight.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to share my story as a way to help other caregivers know that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
So I've been a caregiver for 14 years. My beautiful daughter, Summer, just like the season, has a rare genetic disease, autism, and intellectual disability. So it's been very hands-on over the last 14 years in providing her with all of the support she needs to function on a daily basis and live a meaningful life.
I love that. Wow. It sounds heavy, and I'm really interested to dive into this. Can you touch a little bit on how your caregiving role has shaped your relationships with other family members?
No, certainly. So in addition to Summer, my firstborn is Jordan, my son, and he'll actually be 17 in 2 weeks. And that has really, I say, impacted the family dynamics because all he really ever knows is having a younger sister who has taken the majority of mom and dad's attention. And he is a high energy, loving, outgoing little firecracker. And he is a very good and loving, protective big brother. However, it really has impacted the family dynamic. And the biggest example is like looking back, and the parent, Summer and Jordan's dad, his name is Mike. We're no longer together, but we co-parent in the most beautiful way. But even from a young age, we always divided and conquered. So it was always one of us with Summer and one of us with Jordan. So even though they're 2.5 years apart, when Jordan was 6 and wanted to go to the park, Summer was just learning to walk. So we weren't necessarily always doing the same things together. And when Jordan wanted to go to his friend's house, etc. And so from a very early age, it was nice because we certainly had that one-on-one time, but also it didn't allow us to have a lot of time as a family unit and do a lot as a family unit. And of course, the needs of his sister were always front and center. And a perfect example of this, when Jordan was 5 years old, he said, "Mom, am I special too? Because my parents are in Nova Scotia." And at the time we were always not Zoom, oh sugar, online. And I was sharing the updates, providing, and he was just hearing special needs, because that was before Summer had her proper diagnoses. And I realized, oh my goodness. And that's when it was really struck me how much he was taking in, how he was always listening, and how I really needed to ensure he was part of the conversation and never hide anything from him. And then the other thing would be sometimes he would look on the calendar and see all our appointments and say, "Mom, can I come too?" Like he just wanted to be part of it. It's like, "Oh, nobody, you go to school." It'd be something as, "Can I go to the doctor appointment with you?" So I think it just at that very early age, it just created a different experience for him.
Well, it sounds like he has the same size of heart that you do, Nicole. He's caring and loving, and you can feel the love that you guys have given your children. That's absolutely incredible. Can you share some of the biggest challenges that you might have faced, while caregiving?
Certainly there, I think a few stand out. One is emotionally, that I say, I do call it a trauma. At the time, I didn't realize, and this is something maybe at year 12 or 13 of my caregiver journey, I realized it was traumatic. And it's because Summer only, no, sorry, we only knew something was different with Summer at her first year checkup. So imagine I had Jordan, I delivered a healthy baby girl, all natural birth. I was nursing her, dreaming all the things we parents do while we're sitting, holding our baby. And so it was really at that 1 year mark, where I say my life changed forever. It was when the GP was like, I think I'm going to make a referral to the children's hospital. And lo and behold, we're meeting with the chief neurologist, who was like, your daughter's quite delayed, and we're going to seek early intervention right away. And then it was physical therapy so she could learn to walk, and then occupational therapy so she could learn to hold a spoon and put socks on. And so for me, it was the shock. And at the time, I just put everything in a little black box, I call it. So I didn't feel anything. I went right into survival mode. And that saved me at the time because it just made me focus on, let's get this done, almost from a project management perspective, not as a loving parent, but we do what we do. And all of those dreams, right?
Yeah.
All of those mother-daughter opportunities that would never materialize. But of course, once we work through that, we realize it just looks different. It doesn't mean that there's not happiness and joy, but at that time. And then the other part of that, which is linked, is the challenge of being honest with myself, right?
Yeah.
The beauty of hindsight, right? Is looking back, I'm like, oh, wow, if I could have been more honest in saying, I need help, or I'm so overwhelmed, or I'm so scared, it probably would have helped me at the time better manage. But I felt so isolated. I felt so scared that I thought, I can't say it aloud because that will make it real.
Yeah. Do you think, like, 'cause I feel like a lot of caregivers would really relate to that black box, and it's a survival mode,
Yes.
So like, do you have any like tips or tricks or, something that you can share that, helped you overcome or, for caregivers listening and that are feeling that way right now?
Hmm. That's such an important point, that we do need, to hear from others that yes, this is normal. So I think part of it too is, don't make yourself feel bad. Have so much self-compassion as you're starting to learn or become aware of how you've managed it, right? How you've gotten this far in your journey, regardless of whom you're caring for, right? We love this person, yet this experience has just turned our world upside down. So from a tips perspective, I would say, can you find a support group?
Yeah.
Because that will then, show you that you're not alone. And then if you can find that one person whom you trust, and if you even don't feel comfortable, I wrote a lot down in a journal. That was my first outlet because I felt safe writing things down that I couldn't dare say aloud.
Yeah.
It was so much easier for me to share my fears, etc., than say them out loud and worry about being judged. And that's another thing. The mind is not always our friend. And we create these stories that people are going to judge us and think we're a horrible person. I remember the first time I actually admitted that I was angry and I had resentment, and to hear other people saying, oh, yes, me too, that's normal. And I was like, what? oh my goodness, I'm not a horrible parent. And I laugh about it, but it is, yeah, so important that we realize that the caregiver journey encompasses all of the emotions, like on steroids. Like, I mean, everyone who's
Yeah.
alive experiences all emotions, but we've spoken in the past about you can feel it all really intensely
Yeah.
within one day.
Within one day, all of them, all the feelings. It's incredible. It's quite the roller coaster.
Yes.
That's, a great part to segue into. I'd really, be interested to talk about your emotional connection that you formed with your beautiful daughter. Like tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the, you know, lessons learned is how little words come into play to really communicate with a loved one. And Summer only started speaking at around 10. So up until that time, it was the other modes of communication, whether it be pictures, gestures, and sounds, and of course, energy. And that was the big aha, is I didn't realize how much she picked up on my energy. And so I think for me, when that the emotional connection is, we still do it now. When I would have her, because she was in pull-ups, she's toilet trained at around 13. So for the longest time, I would still change her. I would put my face down and we would rub noses. And that was
Oh,
my way of soothing her. And we would rub cheeks. So I would just put my cheek on her cheek and go shh when she would start fussing. And so it was really finding those moments of like touch and gentleness to kind of so I didn't need to say I love you. We would just touch cheeks, and I would just like a soothing sound. And so it was really, it allowed us to create a form of communication that was so simple, but yet something obviously that's meaningful, because we still do it to this day. When I tuck her in at night, we still do the notes thing, and it's still like makes me giggle. Yeah.
think with kids, like with my kids too, where I always do that snug as a bug in a rug, and you would turn like just snug them all up. And I mean, even as adults, they still, talk about it, or, camping. And yeah, I
Yes.
don't think you ever grow up, like I think your mom is always your mom, no matter what age. So I think that's beautiful that you guys managed to find, connection and, without language, without being able to speak, she wasn't there yet. And you bridged that. That's incredible. Um, can I ask you to share a specific moment that highlights the power of love despite, all these challenges? Like if there
Yeah.
was one or two.
For me, it would be putting Summer's needs first. And the example this will make more sense in a moment, because you're like, yeah, every parent does that, Nicole. Thanks. But some of my most traumatic experiences have been with Summer out in public, because you're never quite sure how she'll respond. And I still choose to do it because she loves going out. So that is why I answered the question in that way. I would never stop taking her out because I know that's what she wants. And for me, it's like, okay, Nicole, how can you better prepare? How can you have maybe 10 backup plans instead of those three, the only three you planned for? And it's always not blaming her, but saying, okay, how can I better prepare? What can I learn from the last time that maybe will make this time better? And it's always keeping that kind of front and center.
Wow, that is such a beautiful example. Like you nailed that. That's really touching, Nicole.
Yeah.
Um, if you were to offer advice to others who are currently caregiving or about to, embark on the journey, their loved ones just, had a diagnosis, or there's been an event happen. Like, if is there any, anything that you could share for them?
I would say tell your family and friends, don't be ashamed. It's not a reflection on you. You've done nothing wrong. So, and I appreciate that even within different cultures. But I have friends and fellow parent caregivers across the board in different cultures, different backgrounds, and they have spoken to, in some instances, how they are the person leading the way in demonstrating and creating that conversation and making it easier for other parents. So I would really stress that. And then it's finding that support group or that one parent whom you know is maybe facing similar challenges, and start there.
So along your journey, what resources really stand out for you? Like, which ones really impacted you and helped you along the way?
A parent support group that I
Yeah.
found at the beginning, and a sibling support group for my son. So at 8 years old, he realized he wasn't alone as a sibling. So it's the same path, right? So I was learning, but then as well, it was just important for him. And it was a safe space with trained instructors to create fun events that really celebrated them for being such amazing siblings, while dosing it with some, really important lessons of that they're not alone, or how to ask for help, emotional regulation, etc.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, you just, looking from the outside, I wouldn't, even think about, yeah, the siblings, and the supports. And so, I gotta ask Nicole, like, your story is absolutely incredible. And, when did you decide that, it was time to be a self-care coach? Like, when did that come into play?
When I turned 40, I really started focusing on my own wellness. And then, as I shared, I started journaling, and I turned my stories at first into blog posts. And I was just, posting them online, posting them on Facebook. And I was getting feedback from people, and even people who I say were only parents who had, they said, these tips, this is so helpful just for any parent. And I saw so many parent caregivers struggling. So while I was making, strides and feeling better on my end with, changes I was making in the tools and strategies I was implementing, I was like, oh my goodness. It was just, it was just internal calling, is like, do it. Like, don't, right? The who am I voice that sometimes can, creep into our head. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? Like, win-win, right? Even if it's one person, it's one fellow caregiver. And when I do it, I love how it makes me feel. And it really allows me to take these challenges from this caregiving journey and to kind of turn it around and say, okay, how can I do it in a respectful manner where summer is still seen in a positive light, and help kind of just light the path for others who feel really, really overwhelmed.
Wow. So, if there's caregivers out there who are experiencing their own story of love, trauma, joy, and challenges, and are really wanting to, connect to you and talk with you, how can they get a hold of you, Nicole?
Yeah, so I keep it simple. So it's NicoleDauz.com. And on Instagram, it's at Nicole Dauz. So yeah, all my contact information, people can DM me or email me and learn more. I have a free Facebook group for parent caregivers. We do a lot around self-care, yes. And I also offer for coaching.
I think that self-care is such a big part, of caregiving, being a parent caregiver. I mean, it's hard just, in general to make it a priority. But as parents, we tend to, like you said, just put your kids first, and it's there's that rule, you got to put that mask on and keep yourself healthy so that you can be the best, person for your loved one. And we're not very good at that. Caregivers, I need to be pushed to do that a little more often.
Yes, and I think as well for, caregivers who can kind of, where the future and the length of the caregiving role is uncertain. I
Yeah.
know 5 years I hit the wall and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm at the beginning of this ultra marathon. And so that was a big wake up as well. It's like when, I'm only, it was 5 years and now I'm like, oh, 14. And
Yeah.
then, for decades and decades, it's really ensuring, as I said, when you shared my mission at the beginning, it's, celebrating the journey, right? Like
Yeah.
we are allowed as caregivers to live meaningful lives,
Yeah.
even when this unimaginable circumstance has, kind of fallen on our lap. We can still say, okay, I can still be happy and I can still live a meaningful life.
Yeah. And I think the more, importance around that is to be able to connect to others, going through the same journey so that, when you share those small wins, they
Yes.
really are wins. They're understood as wins and they're celebrated as wins. And, you can take that moment. So, I love everything you do, Nicole. And I want to thank you so, so, so much for today, for bringing awareness around, a caregiving journey. And so that maybe someone out there, who's listening might not feel so alone in their journey, and you might encourage them to reach out and find the help that they need, connect with others, find those support groups. You shared so many amazing tips and tricks with us today, and your story really is one of, love and trauma, joy, challenges, all the things. And you're so inspiring. So thank you so much for being on this call today. And I really want to encourage anyone who's listening to, share their own caregiving stories out there, and experiences. And I mean, feel free to tag, Team Carepal or Nicole Dauz. I mean, let us know, like, you're not alone in this. We want to hear your stories. So please, and share with others. Be a light, for others who might be in a dark place. You just don't know everyone's journey. So we need to share the care and love one another. Yes, so thank you so much, Nicole. It was wonderful to have you. I hope we can do this again sometime down the road. You're one of my most favorite people. So we look forward to the rest of what you have to bring later in life. And thank you so much.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And thank you for all that you're doing as well with the Team Carepal app.
Yeah. Yes. Again, we're launching that too. So get excited. A lot of good things coming out there. There's a lot of people in this space that are advocating for caregivers. So change is coming. Support is out there. So we just have to find you all.